Warriors fans, you already know this story's first act. Kevin O'Connor reported Golden State was actively pursuing Anthony Davis specifically to reunite him with LeBron James alongside Curry. Draymond declined his own player option to help make the math work. Then it all reportedly died. Sam Amick called it dead on the vine, and Washington's GM said the team was very against moving Davis anywhere. Case closed, according to every report in July. And at 1:41 this afternoon, Shams Charania said that ending was wrong. Anthony Davis has been traded from the Washington Wizards to the Golden State Warriors. Before you scroll off, I'll tell you the specific reasoning Shams gave for why this revived months after being declared dead, and what Draymond posted minutes later. Here's how it went down. Shams delivers. I want to be clear, the earlier pursuit genuinely fell apart in July, largely because Washington wasn't ready to move Davis before his own extension eligibility date arrived that August. My understanding is that once that date passed without an extension actually getting done, Golden State's front office, which never fully walked away from this internally, re-engaged immediately. This deal uses expiring salary and draft compensation, structured differently than the earlier LeBron package framing. Read that back. A genuinely different mechanism than the reported summer version. And minutes later, Draymond posted, "Been saying since the LeBron pursuit that AD's real defensive gravity is exactly what we've missed. Different path, same result, and honestly a cleaner one. Let's work." That's Draymond distinguishing this from the earlier collapsed version of the same idea. Now the whiplash. Wasn't this dead? Here's the honest answer. The July version was specifically tied to a LeBron package deal that never materialized in any real form. This version doesn't require LeBron at all. It's Davis alone, on cleaner terms, once Washington's own extension math genuinely shifted in August. Different deal, same target, and arguably simpler to actually execute now that only one team's roster fit needs to be solved instead of two simultaneous star pursuits. 3 reasons Shams was confident. Reason 1, Golden State's defense has lacked genuine rim protection for years. Davis, healthy, remains an elite two-way anchor capable of anchoring a defense the way this roster hasn't had since its own championship peak. Reason 2, Kerr's system rewards bigs who both protect the rim and space the floor. Precisely Davis's profile, unlike a purely stationary rim runner who would clog driving lanes for Curry. Talk to me in the comments. Does the earlier failed LeBron package pursuit make you more skeptical of this version? Or does the cleaner structure change your read entirely? Go. Reason 3, the specific structural difference, expiring salary and draft picks rather than a complex LeBron contingent framework, confirms this is a genuinely distinct, technically sourced deal rather than a recycled version of the summer rumor. Now the skeptic, Stephen A. Smith. This exact pursuit was reported dead months ago. Now suddenly it's back, without the guy it was originally built around? Are we sure this is real, and not just Golden State convincing themselves of something the rest of the league already passed on? Fair skepticism given the whiplash involved. But here's the counter. Washington's own stated hesitation was always specifically about the extension timeline, not about Davis's fit anywhere else around the league. Once that timeline actually passed, the door reopened on its own terms, independent of whatever else fell apart earlier in the summer. Here's the human weight. Davis has one championship, one in the bubble alongside LeBron. Walking into a genuinely championship-tested organization with real established infrastructure represents a real late-career opportunity, independent of that earlier, more romanticized LeBron framing that first got this rumor started. But the honest risk, extensive injury history across multiple unrelated body parts remains genuinely real regardless of how cleanly this specific deal is now structured on paper. Let's talk about what specifically changed at Washington to make this possible now. Trae Young's own 4-year, $212 million extension signed this summer tells you exactly where real, long-term financial commitment actually sits inside that building. Davis, remaining unextended through that same stretch, was always going to be the more genuinely movable piece of the two decorated, oft-injured stars Washington acquired last season. Let's also talk about role clarity specifically, because it matters for setting real expectations. Davis isn't walking in as the primary offensive engine on this roster. He's a complementary two-way piece next to an already established Curry, Draymond, Butler core. Precisely the reduced burden situation most likely to actually protect his long-term health across a full grinding season. Let's actually walk through how this specific reported pursuit differed from the version everyone thought had died, because the mechanics genuinely matter. The original framing required Golden State to simultaneously land LeBron, meaning Davis's arrival was entirely contingent on a second separate superstar signing actually happening first. That created a genuinely fragile two-part transaction that collapsed the moment either half failed. This version stands entirely on its own. Davis, and only Davis, acquired through a straightforward trade that doesn't depend on any other team's free agent decisions. Let's also spend real time on the specific injury history here, because it deserves honest, direct attention rather than a passing mention. Beyond the hand ligament damage that defined his brief Washington tenure, Davis has dealt with an adductor strain, a detached retina requiring surgery, and other significant absences across recent seasons. This is a genuinely recurring pattern, touching different, unrelated parts of the body, not one isolated injury a team can simply build a single management plan around. Let's also talk about what genuine organizational culture means here specifically, because it's underrated in most breakdowns of a move this significant. Golden State, more than almost any other roster in this league, has built an actual infrastructure. Medical staff, a real load management philosophy, veteran locker room leadership, designed around extending the effective careers of talented players carrying real physical mileage. If any organization is equipped to maximize a healthy version of Davis, it's genuinely this one. Let's also spend a moment on what this move means for the Western Conference hierarchy specifically, since Golden State missing on the original LeBron pursuit had already led plenty of national coverage to treat this roster's realistic ceiling as capped for this specific season. Landing Davis alone, even with real, honest injury caveats attached, reopens that entire conversation in a way almost nothing else remaining on the trade market realistically could have this deep into the calendar year. Let's also address the honest skepticism that comes with any team stacking multiple aging or recently injured pieces onto one roster simultaneously. Curry at 38, Draymond at 36, and now Davis with his own extensive recent injury record represents a genuinely real accumulation of risk that this front office is choosing to accept in direct exchange for real, immediate talent upgrade. Let's also spend real time on Curry's own reported excitement here, separate entirely from Draymond's public reaction, because it matters more than a passing mention would suggest. Curry has publicly discussed for years wanting a genuine defensive anchor who lets him focus more of his own remaining energy on offense at this exact late stage of his career, and Davis, even in a reduced role, represents exactly that kind of relief, so let me bring it home. Davis to the Warriors matters because he fills a real rim protection gap this roster has genuinely lacked for years, because the deal's actual structure is meaningfully different from the collapsed summer version, and because Shams' specific explanation confirms real sourcing rather than a recycled rumor. Draymond's own reaction is the receipt. Now here's what I'm watching next. Hit subscribe. If Davis lands in the Bay, the next question is what Golden State actually attached to make this work, and how this changes the roster's remaining flexibility heading into the season. I've got a read on it that will surprise you. For now, comments, likes, subscribe. Dub Nation, declared dead in July, very much alive in October, wild autumn. Let's also talk about what this specific addition means for the rest of Golden State's rotation, because a move this significant rarely happens in isolation. Adding a genuine two-way anchor at center gives Kerr real lineup flexibility he hasn't had in years. The ability to play a traditional rim-protecting look in matchups that call for size, while still maintaining the small ball, switch-everything identity that's defined this era of Warriors basketball whenever a different opponent calls for it instead. Let's also address the timing question honestly, because it matters for understanding just how deliberate this actually was on Golden State's side. Why move now, rather than waiting to see if the price got even better? The honest answer is that once Washington's public position showed any real crack at all, sitting back risked losing Davis to a competing team entirely, and a front office with genuine conviction about a specific target doesn't wait around hoping for a discount. Let's also spend a moment on how the specific chemistry between Davis and Golden State's existing stars might actually develop on the floor. Curry's gravity as a shooter has always created driving and cutting lanes for a rolling big man, and Davis, when healthy, is exactly the kind of vertical rim-running threat who can finish those exact opportunities at an elite rate, giving this offense a real dimension it hasn't had reliably in years. Let's also walk through the fuller context of how strange Davis's Washington tenure has genuinely been, because it deepens why this trade carries the weight it does. He was acquired in an 8-player blockbuster back in February, suffered ligament damage in his hand before that trade even fully closed, and then, remarkably, never once suited up for Washington across the following season either. An entire fan base watched a 10-time All-Star wear their jersey in press conferences without ever seeing him play a single live game, which makes today's trade the closing chapter of a partnership that never actually got to open in the first place. Let's also touch briefly on what Bob Myers' successors in this front office have historically valued when adding a veteran this late in his career. Genuine two-way fit over pure star power alone, a pattern that traces back through multiple prior additions to this exact core. This move fits that established philosophy cleanly, rather than reading as a desperate, reactive swing after an earlier miss. Let's close with one honest note on what genuinely has to go right here. Davis needs to actually stay on the floor across a real extended stretch of games for any of this tactical logic to matter at all. And given the exact pattern of his last 2 seasons, that's a real open question this front office is choosing to answer with optimism rather than caution. Sometimes that bet pays off, sometimes it doesn't. Either way, the tape starts writing itself the moment he actually steps onto the floor in this new jersey. Let's also acknowledge the specific irony that a team's own quiet internal patience is exactly what allowed this to happen. Golden State never issued a single public statement conceding the pursuit was over, even while every outside report treated it that way. That restraint, choosing not to publicly comment on a rumor rather than either confirming or denying it, kept this door open in a way a more reactive front office might not have managed.